Hi, besties and bosses. I missed y'all so much. It feels like it has been forever because I haven't been live in the group in 2 weeks. And I have historically gone live every week for, I don't know, as many years as we've had the Facebook group. But we had our masterclass 2 weeks ago, and I hosted that on Zoom so that it could be a little bit more intimate and we could workshop things. And last week I was in Iceland for a week. So I love you all so much, but I wasn't gonna come on live when I was having my vacation. So it feels so good to be back. This is not what our live stream is about today. Today we're going to talk about, we pull up our title, we're going to talk about the skill set you need to thrive in the next era of the industry and how to create results AI can't replace. But before we dive into that, talking about this on Instagram. I think it's such a beautiful representation of the both and of business and of life, because I had the most wonderful time in Iceland. If you have not been, I highly recommend it. Feel free to ask me for recos and things. I mean, we had the most lovely time. And also, I was so happy to come back home to my life here, to the gym, to my clients. I like multiple messages from clients were like, "I missed you," and I was like, "I missed you too." So it feels like a really nice both and there to see that, and I feel like that's important to reflect, because I think it's so easy in our space to think it's either like we need to have the, I don't know, never work business that gives us 24 flexibility and freedom to travel the world, or we have to like love our business so much and it becomes our whole life. And I think there's just room for it to be both. I love my free time. I love my life. I have boundaries. I like taking time off with my husband, and also I love my business and my clients so much, and it feels so good to come back to. So, all right, that's my little soapbox spiel there. Let me pull this up in the group to make sure I can see you. If you are here, this feels like a really important conversation to be having today. So if you are live, feel free to say hi. Let me know if you have questions as we go through this, and I will refocus us and dive into this conversation about the skill set you need to thrive in the next era of the industry and create results that AI can't replace. I think, let me just pull up my notes as well. And okay, I can't see you in the group. Great. So if you do have questions, again, I found us so I can see you there. I really have been wanting to talk about this. I think this is, there's a couple things I want to talk on. So I'm going to go into 4 pillars that I think are a part of an overall skill set that I think we're moving into a new era online. We have been, but I think we're kind of officially there. And I want to talk about that because I think in many ways these are not brand new things. They're things that have always been true. But I do just see how essential these are to results right now and to thriving right now. And I think, interestingly enough, because we're also in a new era where AI is more prevalent, where automation is more prevalent, where everybody kind of wants to scale themselves out of certain things, I think a lot of these skill sets are getting forgotten in business, and it is what's causing a lot of, I think, struggle for a lot of business owners. So I really want to talk about that, because I think I was talking about this with a client yesterday, and I was saying I don't know that everybody's going to feel the effects today, but I do think we're going to start to see over the next 6 months to a year people who are losing sight of this skill set and really overly utilizing AI are really going to start to see fractures in their business and in their results. Conversely, I think it's also really important to say, I've been talking so much about how much has shifted in the industry, how things are, I hate the word harder. I do think things are harder. I think things are harder in a different way than they used to be. We'll talk about that more. But I do think you have to be more intentional. I do think your strategy has to be more dialed in. I do think we have to show up, not more in like a hustle burnout way, but more intentionally, maybe more strategically. I don't think it's like more a quantity thing, but a quality thing. I do think it just takes a little bit more than it used to create results in business. I don't know, I keep saying that, it like makes me not the most popular person. My coach has been talking about that a lot as well. We both see the behind the scenes of a lot of businesses, so I just think it's true. And that being said, I just celebrated my biggest cash month ever last month in 9.5 years of business. I've had my 2 biggest cash months this year in business. My business, when I did the numbers earlier this year, we were up 22%. I think we're up more than that now. I haven't done the numbers, but I'm guessing it's probably more like 25-30% from last year. I had multiple clients celebrate their biggest launch results, their biggest cash months, their biggest sales months, getting fully booked for the first time, filling out wait lists for the first time, having their biggest numbers in launches, all in the last couple of months. So the reason I say that is for a couple of reasons. One, just because things are harder in a different way, just because things take more intentionality, that doesn't mean you can't get results. It just means a different thing is required to create those results. This is a horrible example, but I'm in perimenopause now. Hi to all my perimenopause ladies, right? It just takes me different. I just have to work differently at the gym, for example, to create the same results I've always created, right? I have a different landscape than I did. My hormones are different than they were when I was in my 30s. they're just different. It's not like one is better or worse. It just means I have to operate in a different way if I want to have the same outcome. It doesn't mean I can't have that outcome. So same in business. I don't want to overly harp on that part because I do want to get into what I think the skill set is and what those 4 pillars are, but I think it's important to give a little bit of context here. I also think the other piece of context I wanted to share, because I do have the gift of seeing behind the scenes of so many businesses, I really think the tides are turning online. I think for the last, year or 2 years, we've been talking about all of the shifts, and I think so many people have hired me or come to me, or current clients have been in places where they're like, everything feels like results went down. It feels, I think last year in particular, we had a lot of people go out of business. A lot of people hired me because they're like, this has never happened before. Like, I don't know what's working. I think that's shifting a lot. I think part of the reason that's shifting is everybody started to make shifts intentionally and strategically, and it takes time to see a result from those shifts, right? It takes 3 to 6 months, usually on a minimum, for us to implement a strategy and start to see those results, and then for us to improve upon those after we look at data. So I think we're now just at that time lag from so many of us being I don't know, I might have gotten results a little bit sooner just because I was kind of on top of this back in 2021. I'm so close to things with my clients. I just saw what was happening sooner. So I was able to start making shifts and pivots sooner. But I think we're just starting to see the outcome of those pivots, which I think is great news for a couple of reasons. It means people are still buying, even though the world is on fire. It means that I do think things are still, all of those shifts and strategies we're talking about do actually work. And it's just a good reminder that the sooner you implement and make those pivots, the faster you can see those results. But I have seen more record-breaking, not just big months, but record-breaking months last month than I have in a while, which also just tells me, I think just overall, maybe we're also just in a place where like, F it, we're ready to buy and invest again. I do think there's just overall a shift in the industry, and I want to be a voice for that since we've had so much doomsday talk, I feel like, for so long. So let me be a representation or give that indication as well. Okay, let's dive into the conversation, because I think this is, whatever stage of business you're at, I think this is just so important for us to talk about. I'm just seeing my notes if there was anything. This was the last thing I was going to preface. I think y'all, I feel like I've been a broken record about this, but I realize some of you might just be coming to my live for the first time. Just in terms of why I want to have this conversation and why I think we are in a new era online, I've been talking a lot about the changes online, and the changes being, we have seen a trust recession, as everybody is calling it, due to different, really due to the fallout post-pandemic. So we saw, and I'll just spend 2 minutes on this, but I think it is important just to recap for those of you who haven't heard this. During the pandemic, we saw a flood of people come online. So what that did is we both got more crowded online, but we also had more people without credentials, or who were newer to business, or who were figuring things out, or who maybe were just in it for a money grab, come into the online space. And so it got more crowded, but we also had a lot more people buying online and then not getting the delivery that they paid for various reasons, which created a fracture in trust with buyers and people selling online. With that, it has gotten more and more crowded, right? So there is more and more noise to sift through and less trust. So we've gone into a buyer's market. And with that, we've also had AI become much more prevalent with something like ChatGPT, which is flooding our space with, quite honestly, crap. Like, do yourself a favor, if you want to stay in business, don't have AI write all of your content. I can smell it from a mile away. I love AI. I think it can be a great tool for you. I'm not saying don't use it, but I would just be really mindful of, like, sidebar there, of how you're using it. Anyway, that might change down the road, but all of that together, it just means it has just become more and more saturated. It is just harder to get noticed, to get attention, to create a sale. Again, what I just said, I think all of that is tides have turned. I don't think it's just hard in a different way. But because of that, I do think we are in a new era online. And so literally what used to work, like the same things fundamentally have always worked, but what we used to do is just like slap some content online and now create a sale. I think the things that we relied on in the past just are no longer going to work when half of that isn't even getting seen because the space is so flooded with AI. So I think we're just in a new era of business and online. And because of that, I think the skill set that will give you a competitive edge is maybe different than this, what would have given you a competitive edge back in 2020. In 2020, what gave you a competitive edge is literally like, how much could you pump into the space? Truly. Like, my business blew up that year. I think one of the reasons, not to say that I wasn't doing great work, but I was just like, I am going to be here and show up and just put as much out and put as much out to serve people. Like, it kind of was a volume game in some ways. And so I want to talk instead about what is the skill set in this era that I think will really allow you to thrive and give you a competitive edge. Because I think when it is super crowded, not that you're in competition with everybody, but we are looking for how do we create a blue ocean instead of being in that red ocean competing with everybody else, because that is, you do want that competitive edge for yourself in business. Okay, let me just see if there's any. Hey Heather, nice to see you. Heather says agree. So glad this is landing. Anybody else, let me know if like this is landing, if you're seeing the same thing. I'd also just love to know, because you all see different things in the business, if you're seeing different things, because I see one segment of the industry, you might have a completely different perspective. All perspectives are welcome, and it's helpful. I want this to be a conversation. And again, this is the last thing, and then I swear I'm getting into the meat of this. It feels so important to say because I keep saying things are different and harder. It's just, business is hard. Business is both simple and it can feel, my business feels so easy, but I would be so full of shit if I said it was actually easy. It wouldn't look easy to someone looking in. I've just been doing it for almost a decade, so it feels that way to me. And I've created a lot of ease in my business. I think business is hard. I was saying this to a client earlier. If it was easy, everybody would do this, because I also think it's the greatest thing ever. Like, I love my business. I love my work. I love my clients so much. I think what we're seeing right now is it is just hard in a different way than it was in 2020 or in 2017 or in when did I start my business? Like 2013. It is just hard in a different way. When I started my business, nobody knew what a coach was. Nobody knew that you could do something virtually. People thought you were so fucking slimy if you sold something online. And there was talk about trust, like there was a whole different trust issue, right? So it was just hard in a different way. Okay, let me refocus us now, but it just feels important to level set all of those things. Jesse says 100%. So glad this is landing. Okay, so I'm gonna share two stories to illustrate what this skill set is, and then there are 4 pillars to this skill set. It's sort of like, I guess, a group of skill sets in terms of what I just really think will make the difference. So I share stories outside of my business because I think it helps land the plane on these concepts. So I was just in Iceland. We had the best experience. We stayed at a couple of different hotels when we were there, of varying degrees of niceness. They were all, I'm a hotels person. I like nice hotels. And the last 2 days we stayed at this beautiful 5-star resort. Anybody who wants to splurge, we definitely splurged on it, but it was worth every single penny. The reason I'm sharing this here is what was really interesting for me to notice is all of these hotels, at every price point, really went out of their way to give us excellent service. And they really all strived for 5-star service. And obviously at the 5-star hotel or at the retreat, they just went above and beyond. And it was like 5-star white glove service where it was like my right shoe size sandals were waiting for me in the room with my favorite kind of chocolate when I got there, because they had done that research ahead of time, right? Like, they just took it to a whole nother level. But even at the places that were really nice hotels, but they weren't that, they all went out of their way to create an incredible delivery of service and to make us feel like we were so taken care of. And I think that is something, it sounds so Captain Obvious, but I think when we are in a rush online to grow our businesses and we're like, I need to find the next client, and everybody's telling me how I've got to automate, and everybody's telling me how I've got to scale, I think this is something that is very easy to lose sight of. And at the retreat, the resort, whatever you call it, I think one of the other things I really noticed is how much they included. So we paid a premium, but so much was included with that premium. Like, yes, I had to pay for a couple of meals or whatever, but there were just so many little extras and add-ons that at another hotel, they probably would have nickeled and dimed me. And I'm not saying, I mean, this is like justification or like CEO math or something where I'm like, yeah, so I made it cheaper. I'm not necessarily saying that, but I was paying a premium and it really made me feel taken care of, where it's like, then I wasn't getting nickeled and dimed for all of these little things, right? When I came in, they sat us in the lobby and brought us a cocktail or a coffee while they took care of all the registration and got our room set up and brought our bags there, and like brought us over to the lobby, like the things to sign in. These are little tiny touches, but another hotel, I'd have to do that up at the desk. It would just be like a rush to sign things in. Sure, they might take my bags up, but it's just such a different experience and such a different level of care. So I won't go over, because I want to get to all the other points here, but I really just think there's something here for us to remember in a world where everything is being automated and everything is like, how quickly can I scale this and scale out of the human connection, the human touch? How can I cram as many people into a program? There really is something that stands out, and to say, oh, I'm willing to pay such a premium for this level of care and attention and service, and to the degree that I'm not talking to you about it, and to the degree that I would go back and drop that money again. And so I think that's also something people come to expect or want when they're paying a premium. And I know a lot of you are selling high ticket offers, but the reason I said this happened at every hotel, sure, the hotels that weren't quite this retreat level experience weren't including some of the same things, because that wouldn't make sense at the price point. They were nice, but this was above and beyond in terms of I don't know, we were staying for the hotel, not for a place to crash. They all still went out of their way in terms of the level of service that they were bringing to us and how they made us feel cared for and taken care of. And I just think that idea of white glove service is something we have lost sight of. Not probably speaking to people in this group, but I think we've just lost so much sight of that in our industry. And when I look back at my biggest cash month last month, and I look back at some of my clients and their biggest cash months, there are multiple factors to it. But I can guarantee every single one of them is focused on service. And that is definitely a differentiator for them. Okay, so the other thing here, and then I'll break down the 4 pillars, but curious for any of you if you've had that experience, if you know what I'm talking about, if you think that matters. The other thing here is the idea of slowing down sales to speed up sales and really basing your sales on relationship-based trust. And just had another example. I swear I'm not usually such a bougie person, but it was our anniversary last week when we were traveling, and it's going to be my husband's 50th birthday. So we had a lot of big events going on. And so this past weekend, I want to buy my husband a really nice watch from Omega for his 50th birthday. Long backstory there. My father passed away a couple of years ago. I always wanted to buy him a really beautiful watch that he wanted when I made it in air quotes, and he passed away before that happened. So my husband has always been into watches. This feels very emotional to me, just in terms of something I want to be able to do for the man I love in my life, since I didn't get to do that before. So anyway, we went to Omega. Just to give you the backstory there, not that I have to justify why we're spending a lot of money, but that is still an edge of mine. So I still have to justify that in my own mind a little bit when I share that publicly. Anyway, we went to Omega, and this was just such an interesting example of slowing down to speed up sales. So slowing down sales to speed up sales, and the importance of relationship building and trust. The experience we had there, I ended up walking out, not only buying a watch, but buying a more expensive watch than we had gone in planning, when my original intention was to go in, do some shopping, get some information. My husband's birthday is in January, and to buy it in January. The reason I left, and I left feeling so happy with the purchase, and was so happy to be take my money, and felt so good spending my money, truly, it was I was so thrilled, was because of the way the salesperson sold to us. I personally love being sold to. So for anybody who has a story that people don't like being sold to, I love being sold to when it's done in a really good way. But the way this person sold to us is he slowed down. We were in Soho, New York City, so there were so many people coming through. He could have been oh, they're taking too long, they're not serious. We came in the day after our trip. I was dressed like a total scrub. I didn't look like I was someone who's gonna drop down cash for a 5-figure watch. You know what I mean? It was very pretty woman in that experience. He slowed down, he took his time with us, he got us a drink, he showed us all of the things. And at one point I said something about, the time we were taking. He's I'm here to build a relationship with you. He's I'm playing the long game. He's this is all about building a relationship with you. And I was I wish I could capture this. And I was I can't capture it. I'm going to tell you all about this today. So he did that. We moved on to coffee, because my husband was deliberating between a couple of watches, and that's when he spotted the one he really wanted. They brought in other salespeople to help my husband get clear on, the different, I don't know, I know nothing about watches. I could care less about watches, but there's all sorts of things about them, if you're into them, I guess. So They made it a whole experience. They made my husband feel so good. They really took their time. They gave him the time he needed to make his decision. They slowed down and protracted that process. They could have easily crammed, I don't know, we were there for an hour and a half, 2 hours. I don't know how long we were there. We were there for enough to go through water, to go through coffees. And then when we made the purchase, they brought us out champagne to celebrate with us. And like they made it a whole event and experience. Because of that, they built a relationship. They built trust. It felt so good to spend that money, right? I felt great doing it. I felt really great about the purchase. Because they slowed down, they sped up their sales process. Had they rushed us through or rushed 20 other people through, I guarantee that salesperson would have been like, ugh, I've just worked so hard. I talked to 20 people today. Everybody's so cheap. No one's buying. We're in a bad economy. Everybody comes in because they just want a free drink. Everybody comes in here, they just want to see the things and try them on for free. Like nobody's serious. Nobody wants to buy. When the truth is, it's because he would have just rushed through selling to 20 people or 30 people, however many people gotten through that time, instead of saying, I'm just going to focus on the person in front of me and build a relationship with them, whether or not I have no expectation of them to buy today. I don't think he expected us to buy today. And what I know is because he told us, he's like, this is my best day I've ever had in business, because right before us, someone bought literally the same watch. It was a limited edition thing. They bought the watch before us. And I told him, like, well, you can just expect this to be normal. And I don't know, I'm a coach. I had to like tell him that this gets to be his new normal and also some of the things he was doing. But the difference was because he slowed down with us and because he built a relationship and because he built that trust, he made 2 5-figure sales that day, right? And so you can see he could have done the same thing but rushed through that and not build those relationships and talk to literally 20 more people, and I guarantee he wouldn't have made those same sales. And I think that is the difference maker in sales. And I think what's happening online, especially with things like online and with how crowded it is, we are all in such a rush to plow through things and to like hit big numbers that we're forgetting the power of relationship building and the power of slowing down to speed up. And how when we don't rush people and when we don't rush the process, it actually collapses the process. He slowed down with us, but I would have otherwise waited until January, and who knows, between now and January, I might have found a different watch we liked more. I might have talked us out of it, right? Like we might have decided to use that money somewhere else. We might have still bought it, but we probably wouldn't have bought it from this person. We would have bought it online. So literally by slowing down, even though it seems like it would have taken longer with one person, he collapsed a 3-month sales process and did it in one day. Is this making sense? Heather says, that's so special and amazing. Thanks for sharing. Thank you for seeing me in that. And thank you also all for witnessing me in my own, this is my buddy stuff, right? Like owning the good stuff is so uncomfortable for me, y'all. And Heather says, what an amazing experience. Kudos to them and such a great example. I'm so glad that lands. Yeah, it's such a beautiful example to me. And I think just to put a button on that, and then I'll break down more specifically the 4 pillars here that I've been kind of telling through story. I share this in the masterclass if you join me for the fully booked method. I think we forget with sales that we buy as humans. We are such emotionally driven humans. We buy for emotional reasons, and then we fill that reason in with logic. How we leave someone feeling is everything when it comes to sales. And I think we are in an era where that has always been true, but it is so much more important than ever, because the business owners who focus on relationship trust, how they leave someone feeling, slowing down to speed up, right, to create that emotional trust and connection, are going to be the ones who thrive in a world where, I mean, AI can do a lot, but it can't mimic human connection, right? It can't mimic that feeling. It can't do those things for us. I think we're really going to start to see that divide, maybe not now, but in the next 6 months to a year. And I mean, my husband is so happy, but I left. I was like, I spent a lot of money. I think this is also important for some people to hear, just in terms of if you're selling high ticket, because I think the thing is always like, this will put people out. People don't want to spend this money. People don't want to invest in this level. People, like, I don't know, everybody can't afford it. My thought process was truly, I want to spend this money. It feels so good to spend this money. We did not pick the cheapest option. We jumped up quite a few levels. I was so glad to have those options. Like, yes, I'm blessed and we make good money in my business, and I budgeted for this. I've like saved for this gift. Yes, I have done a lot of work around my like relationship with money and all of that. But I also think we just forget there are people who genuinely want to invest. And a lot of times, if we're walking into a store, if someone's booking a consultation with you, it's usually because we have the intention to want to invest and to buy something. Obviously, that's not the case for everybody, but a lot of people are doing that with the intention to buy. And so, if that is the case, it then feels really good to be sold to and to make that investment. I mean, it was extra nice to get a glass. I don't usually drink, but I was like, I will have that glass of champagne. This feels like a big celebration, right? To make a big deal out of it. But I think that's just important for some of you to hear that that is genuinely how people feel. Like, I left feeling like, this is amazing. I can't believe we just did that. And so maybe that's just a helpful narrative reminder on the sales side. Heather says, yes. So glad this is landing. Okay, let me briefly, and I'm just getting really warm. We're at the time of year in New York City where it's like hot, cold, and it's very great today. So I'm like cold, hot so let me just take my sweatshirt off there. Okay, so let's just dive through. I feel like I explained these pretty well, but I also want to break this down a little bit more just into 4 pillars. So 4 pillars specifically in terms of how to AI-proof your business and how to thrive in this new era online. And where these are coming from, yes, these examples I just share, but I think success leaves clues, as the saying goes. So I was taking a look at, okay, what contributed to my biggest cash month ever in 10 years? I've been consistent, we're on our 75th consecutive 10K to 40, well now it's like 43, 44K cash months. And I've been making 25 to 40K plus cash months for the past 2-3 years. So I wanted to look at specifically the last couple of the big ones we've had this year, my best ever in business, what contributed to that, and then looking at my clients' businesses just in terms of some of their results. And of course, there is never just one thing. What I was saying at the beginning of this live stream, all of my clients have been, and myself included, have been incredibly intentional with their strategy, incredibly dialed in with their marketing, and just willing to really lean into that. So that is definitely part of it. But these are the 4 pillars that I think kind of go outside of that, and that again I think are just going to help us all AI-proof our business and to continue to thrive in this new era. So the first one that I was speaking to through those examples is relationship equity. This is not a term coined somewhere else. I kind of made up that term, but I think of it as, in the past, sometimes it was like content was our biggest asset in business. I think content still is an asset and it can create relationship equity, but I think we forget that business is built on relationships. That has just always been true. I really think in this new era of business, the equity you build in relationships is going to be one of your biggest competitive edges and differentiators. Like, hands down, like more than anything. Yes, we use content and marketing to build relationships, to build trust. So that is part of this. But I think sometimes we forget the relationship element of it. I truly, like I talked about this in the Fully Booked Method, I truly think this is your biggest asset in business, and the biggest equity you can build. Equity meaning like value, right? Like you could have like equity value. And I think the reason for that is, with AI being used more and more and more, and people wanting to outsource more and more and more, and people wanting to scale out of everything more and more and more, that relationship and connection and that trust you build with people, with your audience, with your network, that is something that AI can't replace. AI can support you. Like, I'm not hating on AI at all. Like that's, I mean, there are ethical concerns, there are environmental concerns. That's a different point, but it's just in terms of using AI. Almost every business is. So that's not the issue. The issue is if almost every business is using AI, that is no longer a differentiator, right? The fact that you can have ChatGPT create content for you, well, so can literally any human who can type into ChatGPT. That is no longer something that differentiates you from another business, especially if it is cranking out most of the content for you. But the relationship you have with another human, that trust you build with another human, that is a differentiator. If we go back to the watch example, there are plenty of stores we can go to buy literally the same watch. Yes, we bought a special edition watch, right? Like, we could talk about the business and the brand and all of that, but it's in terms of who got our commission, right? I could have bought this online. I could have gone to one of the other flagship or boutique stores. There are plenty of places for that. The reason we bought from that specific store, and the reason we didn't wait until January, quite honestly, wasn't only because of the watch. It was because of the relationship and trust and experience that was built with that person who literally was consciously saying, I'm building a relationship with you. I'm in this for the long game. And then he also gave us his contact information. If we buy another watch, who do you think we're going to, right? Like, he has built equity. That hour or 2 hours of his life just made him a lot of money and will continue to do so. That's something that, I mean, AI might be able to do that in the future, but as of right now, the one thing AI cannot do is create a human connection. It can mimic it. This is one of my, I have quite a few clients who are therapists. One of my therapist clients and I were talking about this just in terms of some of the fear of like AI replacing therapy because people are using it that way. And what we were talking about is, at least at this stage, I think there are certain people who are never going to go to a therapist who will benefit from having something with AI. But right now, AI is not the same as a human holding space for you. And what happens with that relationship? Right now, what the studies show is the number one determiner of a benefit from therapy, and I think coaching is the same, is your relationship with the practitioner, not the modality. Right now, that is something AI cannot replace. And so that is the one thing that all of us can lean into if we want to AI proof our business and if we want to continue to thrive in a world where pretty much, I'd say, 90% of businesses are utilizing AI, right? Like that is going to be your differentiator. Is that making sense? Heather says, yes, there's a time for splurging and a time for saving. This was 100% a splurge time, and yes, buy it with no guilt. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, exactly. It's kind of the both and I was talking about at the beginning of this live stream. This, not that we have to like go down that rabbit hole, but I think it's important to say there, like, it's just such a good example of a buy, both and. So yes, I love you for saying that, Heather. It's exactly that. There's a time we've got to enjoy our money and circulate as well. I will say, I do believe, side note, I said to my husband, I'm like, this is also going to make me money. And we made double the amount in sales the following day in my business. So I do also believe when we spend with intention, when it feels good, and when we're not frying our nervous system, money needs to be circulated. And when we circulate money, it also makes it easier to make more. I do believe when we spend that way, it makes it easier for us to sell in that way and to expect people to do the same through our business. Anyway, I will not go down a whole rabbit hole on money. We could tell me if you all want a live stream on money thoughts. I definitely have lots on that. Heather says relationship equity is so important to remember. Definitely confirmation. Says, I love it. Okay, so let me go to the next one here. So the next part of this pillar is client delivery and how that leads to sales and retention. Again, these are not brand new concepts, but I think they are concepts that get forgotten an alarming amount. And I think these are the pillars that are going and skill sets that will have you thrive as we move forward, which is great for a lot of people here. Client delivery, and that's kind of that white glove service. Well, actually, that's the next thing. But client delivery in terms of how you are showing up to deliver an offer is everything. Again, in an AI-driven world where so much is being automated, and where so many people are trying to scale themselves out of delivery. Delivery does not mean burn yourself out. It does not mean you have to overwork, but there is something to really caring about quality delivery. And even, I'm mindful of how to say this, over-delivering from a place of joy. I do not over-deliver from a place of resentment or feeling like I have to, or feeling like that's the only way I can make money, but I over-deliver for my clients all of the time. And I do so from a place of joy. And I do know that because I deliver an excellent service, because I focus on delivery, because I make my clients and delivery to my clients my number one priority in my business, and I see that as the number one thing that allows me to thrive in business, really it changes the results in my business. I have a revenue sharing model, so of course this affects my business maybe differently than other businesses, but no matter what, your delivery is what keeps happy clients. It's what creates testimonials. It's what creates word of mouth service. It's what creates more trust, right? It is everything in your business, in my opinion. And for me in particular, when I take a look at why did I have the best revenue month ever this last month and the month before, like I said, a lot of my clients did as well. Well, I have a revenue sharing model. If a lot of my clients are having good results, of course my clients get their own results, but I am coaching and supporting them to help them do that, right, through my delivery. Literally, I see that in my revenue then in terms of revenue share. So I think there's just such good evidence for all of us here. Client delivery in terms of that second pillar, in terms of how to AI proof your business, really changes everything. And then again, it will change in support you in terms of retention and referrals. Retention, keeping a client, cost your business, I don't know what the stats are, it's something like 10 times less than creating a new client in terms of marketing, ad spend, all of that. And then referrals and word of mouth marketing is literally the cheapest free marketing you will ever get in your business. Both of those come from delivery. Okay, so the third pillar here, just seeing if there's, Heather says, we're not hearing about this at all right now. This is powerful and a breath of fresh air in an AI-driven world. Oh, I'm so glad this is, when you're so close to some things, I think about this stuff all day long. I think everybody must be thinking this. So I really appreciate you reflecting that, Heather. Thank you. Okay, so the third pillar here in terms of how to AI proof your business and this is how to make lots of money in your business as well in a way that feels good, is that white glove service. And I think of this also as doing things that don't scale to scale. I talked about this briefly in the masterclass. This is a term, I think it was Rich Litvin I heard this from first, but again, in a world where for the majority of people, the messaging is, how do you scale your business as quickly as possible? How do you automate everything? How do you scale? And look, I'm literally scaling a 101 model, right? I help my clients scale every day. Like the reason they had record-breaking months last month is because they're all scaling. I am not saying we are not here for scaling revenue. And sometimes the best way to scale is to do the things that don't scale to scale. Sometimes taking the care to have white glove service instead of how can I just automate and personalize everything, literally changes your business. When I think about that 5-star retreat, resort, hotel, whatever you want to call that, the level of attention and care they put into service and into anticipating what we might need and into making sure everything was seamless. I mean, it was the kind of thing where literally it was absurd. I went into the spa and I would use the restroom and I was like, has no one used the restroom? Because when like they clean it and they make the little triangle point with the toilet paper, it was like they had someone on staff literally after anyone used the restroom to make sure it was fresh and clean. There is no way that is the most economical thing for them in terms of if we're just trying to scale as quickly as possible and make as much money and get a money grab as possible. That is not necessarily scalable. And yet, as someone who is a germ freak and likes a nice place to stay because cleanliness and aesthetics matter a lot to me and my nervous system, and it just makes my heart happy, that level of attention to detail and service, I'm talking about it now, it went such a long way. So of course, it's also helping them scale and make more money. So it is doing a thing that does not scale that absolutely helps them scale. I don't know if that's the best example, but I think we forget that white glove service in the moment does not seem scalable. It is not scalable, right? I give my clients such white glove service. I'm a one-on-one coach and I give them a lot of attention between calls. I pour into them. There's a lot I do in terms of gifts and surprising and delighting them that is not scalable. It costs me money. It costs me time. I could put if I was just trying to cram clients in, I could probably squeeze 3 to 5 more clients in, or I could save money by not sending them gifts or not paying my team, for example, to reschedule their sessions for them, or lots of things that literally aren't scalable, cost us time or money. And they make my business so scalable because my business is built on white glove service, right? Clients sticking around and clients enjoying their experience and our relationship together, and that contributes to their results and that contributes to retention and revenue. So I think sometimes we get so short-sighted that we miss the big picture. Obviously, you can't do everything not scalable and expect your business to scale, but I truly think a lot of the best strategies to scale have some non-scalability in them. Does that make sense, or does that seem like double speak? Let me know if that doesn't make sense and if you need an explanation around that. And then the fourth pillar here in terms of how to AI proof your business and how to thrive in this new era online is similar to what I was just talking about, but I think it's a little bit of a nuance, and that's human delivery and emotional intelligence. So the reason I think this is different than the white glove service is, and then different than delivery of your product, what I mean specifically here in the nuance, I mean specifically here is literally human delivery and having emotional, relational intelligence. And I know all of these are that's why they're pillars, right? They're all part of the same skill set. They're all part of relationship building and delivery, service basically. But the nuance on this one is, again, in a world of AI is brilliant, right? And who knows, at one point, I don't know where AI is going to go. Maybe it will mimic human delivery in the future. I don't know, like I have no idea what science will do. As of right now, the one thing a chatbot, the one thing AI cannot do is be a human, and it cannot have emotional intelligence and emotional experience. It literally cannot feel. That is the one thing it can't do right now. I guess it also can't do things like literally be a human crafting something, delivering something to us. If that is the one thing it can't do, that is the one thing we can lean into that is going to differentiate us in a world where more and more people are leaning on how do I take the human out of my business? How do I take the human delivery out of my business? Which means how do I also take the emotional intelligence out of my business? I'm not saying ChatGPT can't have some, scan the internet and understand psychological things, but that is very different than emotional intelligence and empathy and emotional relationship and what's the word I'm looking for? And resonance, and what it means to be seen, heard, understood by another human. I'm just going to use the watch example because I think it's just such a good one. That watch is on that we ended up getting. It's online. I could have had ChatGPT or AI tell me all about it. I'm sure they have a sales bot online. I could see all the pictures. I'm sure they have one of those like virtual trying on things. That's not what sold the watch to us. What sold that watch to us is getting to literally touch and feel it and see what it looked like on my, like, because it was actually one of those, you all know how this is, like when you see something, you're like, I don't know, and then you put it on, you're like, oh, this is the one, right? So there was that aspect, but it was the whole experience around it, right? It was having someone sit there and literally tell us the things we could probably research online, but we also didn't know what we didn't know to even ask, so we wouldn't even know what to put in a chat bot. But having someone describe that, what I noticed with this salesperson that feels so important to articulate is he was so attuned to paying attention to my husband, making him feel seen, heard, and understood, but also paying attention to detail so he could reflect back why this watch versus that watch, why he thought this one matches aesthetic. Hey, I noticed this thing you said 20 minutes ago. Like, here's why I think you'd like this one. Same with he brought in one of the other, I don't know, I didn't know a watch could be this like detailed, but brought in another like shop person or whatever. And I noticed how they as well like took the care to like get to know and like pay attention to certain details and reflect that and like connect with my husband. So that's what helped him actually make the decision. And that's why we actually bought that watch, right? None of that can be done by AI, at least as of today. That is your differentiator, right? Like all of these things here are your differentiator. This is what creates that blue ocean. This is what is your competitive edge, because not only is it a competitive edge, not only is it the thing that drives sales more than anything, but it's also what most people aren't doing, which most people aren't willing to do. And even the people who are doing that, the beautiful thing about this is we all do it in different ways, right? Who I am as a human, how I relationally connect is going to be very different than how somebody else does that, which means when we're leaning into that as our differentiator and our competitive edge, we also naturally attract and repel the people who are the right fit clients for our products and services. And so because of that, right, you really do start to make the competition irrelevant, and you're able to thrive in a world of, AI everything and everyone starting to sound exactly the same. And so I really think, yes, I'm going to put the environmental and ethical parts of AI to the side for a moment. I do think AI is not going anywhere, and there is a lot of benefits to using it as a tool. There's a lot of ways you can use that in business. I'm not saying don't use it. We have all sorts of automations in my business. We have all sorts of systems and processes. I'm not saying we need to go old school and like not lean into automations, not lean into technology, not lean into AI. That is not what this conversation is at all. I think if we don't lean into technology, we will get left behind. I do think that there is that truth. And whenever there's something like this and everybody is doing one thing, we also often lose the foundations and the fundamentals that allow us to thrive. And when we can be the smart business owners who are noticing, hey, yes, there's this new thing, how do I lean into it? But also, how do I not lose sight of these core components that have always been true in business, but more than ever are going to be my competitive edge differentiator and allow me to thrive? I think that's what sets you up to win in this new era. And that's how you become one of the business owners who's like, oh, everybody's saying business is so hard. I'm not saying I don't have to show up. I'm not saying there aren't hard things, but it actually feels pretty easeful. It actually feels like I'm making sales very easily. It actually feels like people love to pay me money, right? These are, in my experience and from what I'm seeing, I think the things we really want to be focusing on. So I hope this is valuable for you. I hope, I'm just going to see here. Heather says, yes, a tool, but our human brain goes a long way and truly sets us apart. And she says caring and serving goes a long way. Oh, these are so great. I missed these before. She said, AI can't see the hesitations and read our clients. Strategy doesn't work without buy-in or belief. All of what you're saying, 1,010%, Heather. Caring and serving, it is just wild to me. It sounds so simple. I spent 10 years waiting tables, y'all, and working in a bar. And not to pat myself on the back, but I routinely would triple, quadruple, 5 times sell more than everybody else who was working with me at the same time and make ridiculous tips. I've had people, I kept all my clothes on, I promise. I've had people hand me $1,000 and $1,500 in cash extra in tips before because of caring and because of service. You can't fake caring, right? I think that's the other thing with service, is to what Heather said. I care about my clients so deeply, and I believe that they can feel that. I believe that's why when I came back in town, they're like, I miss you. And I was like, I miss you too, right? They know I genuinely care. They know I genuinely want to be there. And so, yes, I'm obviously serving them as well, but I just don't think you can fake that. And AI can't do that. It literally, that is a human quality. It can fake it, it can mimic it, right? If we're feeling lonely, we can definitely chat with it all day long. It knows the right words to say. But I do think you know this is true because you can feel this online. You can see 10 people write a piece of content that's kind of similar, and it's technically correct, but it makes you feel nothing. And then have someone share something, even if it's about a similar topic, and you're like, oh, that just got me. Or I just feel so seen. Or oh, I just want to and part of that's because it's probably coming from a human, right? And it's because they're showing they care. They're bringing their heart to it. I was literally talking about that with a client this morning, of how bringing your heart to something is, that's what we're talking about here, right? That is the differentiator. People feel that. And so to close, though, on what Heather was saying, to affirm here, yes, AI is a tool, but our human brain can go a long way and truly sets us apart. It truly does. I could also eat, I don't know what technology will do. I could eat my words in the future, but I do think right now, for any of us who are relying a little too heavily on AI, they've done some, I'm always lukewarm on studies because there's a causation and correlation are two very different things, but some of the studies are showing, and these are preliminary studies, the people who are over-relying on them are really starting to weaken their critical thinking skills and their abilities in certain things. I do see clients who are over-relying on AI. It is making certain things more challenging for them. So again, it is a tool. It is super beneficial. Let's not pretend it's not real. Let's not learn how to, let's make sure we learn how to utilize it, use the tools, right? I'm not mad at automations. I'm not mad at things that make things more efficient. I'm not mad at things that make my business run smoother. I am all for that. I am all for how do we, that is part of scaling. All for that. I'm all for using AI as a tool, but using AI as a tool is very different than expecting AI to replace us. And I think that's also the fear we have. It can't replace us if you make yourself irreplaceable. And the way you make yourself irreplaceable is what we're talking about here. But also the way we make ourselves irreplaceable is not losing our critical thinking skills. I'm going to go down a rabbit hole, so I'm going to tie it up there. But I do think we forget that critical thinking is a skill, and that is a muscle we can work. And the more we outsource that, the more that weakens. So, all right, I love you all. I'm going to not go down that rabbit hole. Maybe that's a conversation for another day, because I think our critical thinking skills could use some, not in this group. You all have great critical thinking skills, which is what I see online sometimes. Let me tie this in a bow for us, though. I think the tides are turning. For those of you who've been hearing all the doomsday stuff online, I really do think things are shifting. Yes, I will acknowledge, I do think things take more intentionality, more strategy, more refinement. Not showing up more, but showing up in a different, doing less better way is maybe the way I think about it. I think in some ways we can show up less than we did in the past, but I do think it is about quality over quantity. And I do think AI is real, and it is saturated, and it is loud, and there is a trust recession, and we are literally in a new era in our online space, and that isn't a bad thing. I think for those of us who understand that and can lean into probably the things that for all of us who are heart-centered, who are high-achieving, who are people who got into business because we want a business, because we care about service, because we care about delivery, it's actually good news for us. This gets to be our era. I actually think of this and I'm like, great, this is our Super Bowl. Amazing. This is where we get to thrive. And so I want you to hear that, because I think the fear is we're all effed. No one's spending money anymore, and AI is coming for all our jobs. And I just don't think that's the truth at all. I just think things are different, and we just want to be really mindful and strategic and intentional with what we lean into. And I think one of the things we want to make sure, and I'll just give you that recap, and then what we don't want to lose sight of is really thinking about that relationship equity. Let me see, where's my list here so I can just make sure that I don't make up new names for these. Is that relationship equity, client delivery, and I would say client delivery and retention, but client delivery, the white glove service and doing things that don't scale to scale, and that human delivery and emotional intelligence. And again, doesn't mean all the other things don't matter as well, but I do think that gets to be your competitive edge. So you are all in such a great place to benefit from that. Ruth says, hi, it's been a long time. I really worry about everyone who thinks AI is a substitute for human interaction. It has been a long time. Nice to see your face here. And I agree with you. And I think, we'll see what happens as we go on. But look, for all my therapists, there will probably be therapy we need to do down the road around people who have, I think we saw this with social media a little bit during the pandemic in terms of what happened when we removed ourselves from human connection because we got so just in online connection. I always reading studies. So again, I don't know if this is a correlation study or a causation study, but there is research that points to how beneficial the interaction we get even from those tertiary relationships where we have 5 minutes of small talk, and how much they saw that impact mental health during the pandemic because we weren't getting that. We were only getting connection online. Human interaction is actually really important. It affects our mental health. All right. So Ruth, I am with you on that. Y'all, I love you so much. Thank you for having this conversation with me. If you're listening on the replay, definitely throw any questions, comments for me. If this is something you want support with in your business, along with the practical strategy around your messaging, your positioning, how to show up and market on or offline, I have plenty of clients who market offline as well, your sales strategy, creating your offer so you can set yourself up to scale to make reliable and reoccurring revenue, I would love to connect with you. I am currently fully booked, but I will be opening up one of my week-long strategy intensives soon. Probably not until November. We might have one at the end of the month. Probably not until November. And then either way, if you're interested in ongoing support, I don't know when my next spot is opening up, but if we connect, the sooner we connect, the sooner I can put you on my wait list for when a spot does open up. And those become available when clients wrap up their work. So I might have a spot open up in November or December. But definitely we'll have a week-long strategy intensive opening up. And if you're coming to the New York City area, we will also have a VIP day. I think those are booked for the year, but I will probably open up another one in January. Or in the spring if you're interested in that. All right, so I'll drop a link for that. Thank you all for having this conversation with me. Again, if you have questions, let me know. And let me know if you're interested in having that money conversation. If that's something that's interesting to you all, I'm happy to do a live stream around that. All right, thank you. Bye.